Good evening. I'm Dan Posey, President of the Temple ISD Board of Trustees. And I want to thank Pastor Robert Beeman and New Day Fellowship for having Dr. Ott and myself here tonight to help explain and offer some background on our Proposition A and Proposition B. I have been on the Temple School Board since 2011. In fact, Dr. Ott has been with the Temple School District since 2012. And since 2018, he has been the superintendent. And it's been a pleasure to work with him. At this point now, I will turn it over to Dr. Ott to go through the presentation and offer some information and background on both Proposition A and Proposition B. Dr. Ott.
Thank you. Okay, well, I too appreciate Pastor Beeman and Good Day Fellowship Church for giving us this opportunity. And I just want to encourage all of you that it's very important to share this information, not just to receive it, but to share it. I'm going to do my best to not only go through this, but to answer questions that I have received throughout the community while I've been presenting. So today we're going to talk about the Temple ISD election 2025. So typically when I go out and I present, I usually do an entire annual review, but because the purpose of this presentation is really focused around the Proposition A and Proposition B coming up the next couple weeks, I only left the district snapshot to one slide. So I'm going to go over some of the things on this slide just to kind of refresh your memory and remind you of some of the accomplishments of Temple ISD last year. Last year, we had 489 dual credit classes taken at the high school, so that effectively means that students sat in a high school classroom and also received college credit. If you just do the math, 489 college credits, right, or classes, that's a lot of money that parents are saving on college tuition because those are free college credits that are earned. Our CTE Center, which opened in 2018, and you know that's a demonstration site. It's a very, very popular career tech center across the state of Texas. We've had visitors from school districts all over. We had 4,611 classes taken this last year from our students. Now, knowing we only have about 2,300 students, that means that many students are taking multiple courses. We have about 90% of our high school kids taking a CTE class. So this is another extraordinary example of students being prepared when they leave high school. We had 14 national merit recognitions. I will tell you, since I've been in Temple ISD, that is the most that we've ever had. The second most since I've been in the district has been 8. So we are extremely proud of our advanced academics program and what they've been able to accomplish, this past year. We graduated 627 graduates, and 8 of those students, before they walked across the stage and received a high school diploma, they already had an associate's degree from Temple College. And that is due in large part to our partnership with Temple College and the Bioscience Institute. And then we had 163 national and state qualifiers. So that includes fine arts, that includes athletics, that includes CTE. It also includes UIL academics. All that is wrapped up. My personal goal is to see the school district eclipse 200, and I think we have the talent in Temple ISD to do that. So I want to talk a little bit about the election, and I'll tell you, when I go out in the community, the 2 questions that I'm asked the most is around governance and around finances. So people want to know those things, right? If you are going out and you have an asking to the community, they want to know, how's your governance? Are you decisive? Is your school board, do they work together? Do you have theatrics in the boardroom? Do you have a lot of indecision? Do you have a lot of conflict? And so forth. And the next question they want to know is, how do you manage our money? If you're going to ask us for money, how do you manage it, right? Very, very good questions. And instead of me just telling you how great I think both those things are, I'll let the statistics speak for themselves. 2.5 months ago, our school district was named the top school board, or our school board was named the top school board in Region 12. The state of Texas has divided all 1,200 school districts into 20 regions. We are Region 12. There's about 80 school districts in our region, and in that region, Temple ISD School Board was ranked number 1. About a month ago, same school board was nominated to be an honor board, which is the top 5 in the state. So you go from 1,000-something school boards down to 20, one for each region, and then they pick 5. And those 5 go to the TASA and TASB conference, and then they go interview. We did not get first place, but we're top 5 in the state, which really speaks high to our governance, the quality of the individuals we have, the stability we have on the board. And I think one of our greatest strengths is the fact that our school board, they're all single-member districts, every single seat. So they represent every neighborhood in this entire community that feeds Temple ISD. Every single neighborhood has a school board member that they can reach. The next piece is finance, right? How do you manage our money? So you can see there we have 6 awards. So most school districts, they do pretty well on the state award, right? We're one of them. We had a 96 on our last report card, last 2 report cards. So we've been A in terms of financial ranking. That really hadn't been a problem at all. A lot of school districts don't have national and international awards. We do. So in our region of 80 school districts, there's only 2 that have ever received the national award, and that's us and Killeen ISD. There's only 1 that's received the international national award for the last 6 years straight, and that's Temple ISD. And you may be wondering, well, how do you get those awards? What do those mean? Good questions, right? Question I'm asked a lot of times. A couple different things. 1, your transparency. 2, your internal controls. 3, you don't have any funny business. You're not out there just, sliding contracts here and there, right? We go out for competitive bids every single time that we're supposed to. The stuff that we post online, the efficiency that we have in our books, and then the last thing is not having any material weaknesses in our audits. We have not had any material weaknesses in our financial audits. So we do a very, very, very good job of managing your money in Temple ISD, and that's very important. And it's not because I'm saying so, it's because peers and organizations are saying so based on applications and so forth. So many of you are probably familiar with this. We don't just come up with plans 4 months ago, overnight, or what have you. It's a very long, thought-out process. The school district does a really good job of long-range planning. As you can see here, it started in 2011, and many of you have been part of this. In 2011, if you go all the way to 2025, that's 14 years, what you'll see in this roadmap, and I'll explain a few of the high points, what you'll see in this roadmap is you'll see that this is the district's planning method and how to respond to a couple things. 1, how to renovate old facilities. 2, which recently started happening since 2018, and that is how do you plan for growth, right? And then the third thing is how do you make sure that your maintenance items are taken care of? Things that don't last 50 or 60 years, like school buses, technology, roofs, HVAC, so forth. All of that is built into here. So in 2011, we first started by addressing a little bit of growth, but mainly renovation. The highlight in that bond, it was only $55 million, and many of you probably remember this. That was Jefferson Elementary. That was knocking down the old building, which was small, on the same site, building a new one that added about 35% capacity. That school right now has 36 classrooms in it. The previous one probably had about, 20 maybe. And then if you go to 2013, I was actually hired here in 2012 as an assistant superintendent. In 2013, we passed a tax ratification election. So there are 2 sides of the tax rate. And I want to explain this very clearly. I teach school finance, and this is how I explain it. There are 2 sides of a tax rate when it comes to public education. One side is called maintenance and operations. That is like your checking account. It pays for day-to-day stuff, turning the lights on, computers, staff, things that you use day to day, right? Year after year after year. The other side of the tax rate is called your INS, or interest and sinking. You use that for capital outlay items, buildings, things that last a long time. It's like your mortgage, right? So on that side of the tax rate, when you go to the community, it's called a bond, right? Which is like your mortgage. The only difference is you're not going to a bank, you're going to your community. You pull out a loan, 20 years, right? 25 years. On your mortgage, it may be 30 years. It has an interest rate. has a term. You can refinance it, all the same stuff, right? In fact, we just refinanced a bond about 5 months ago and saved the community $4 million, a previous bond. The maintenance and operations side of your tax rate, this is, like I said before, your day-to-day stuff. When you go to the community for that, that's called a tax ratification election. So this is one side of the tax rate. This is the other. When we went out to the community here, we went out for 8 cents. That was quite a bit. That was a long time ago. And we did that because we were behind in technology, we were behind in library collections, we were behind in science manipulatives, we were behind in school buses. So those are year after year items on replacement cycles, what have you. So this helped take care of that, okay? And then in 2015, we went out for a bond that was $136.5 million. And some of the big projects out there, you probably remember, the Career Tech Center, which opened in 2018, Thornton Elementary, which opened in 2017. And that was the same as Jefferson, knock down old building, add more capacity, build on the same site. The Fine Arts Building or Center at the high school, which opened in 2020. And so there were a lot of big projects in there, and that's when we started getting rid of portables. Because you see, in 2011, the community, after we passed the bond, said, we're tired of portables. We had 47 portables all across Temple ISD. In 2015, we were able to get rid of 27 of them. It was in that bond. Replace it by adding classrooms, right? That's what we did out of this bond as well. And then 2018 is up here because, one, that's when I became superintendent, but two, the bigger reason, because that's when we started hearing, hey, we are growing in Temple ISD. You see, the city of Temple has been growing for years, but the city of Temple has 4 school districts in it. Troy, a part of Troy ISD is in it, right? Part of Academy ISD is in it, and Belton ISD and Temple ISD. We are all inside the city of Temple. City of Temple is a big circle. We're about half that circle, maybe a little less. Mainly situated on the east side of 35. We only have 2 schools on the west side, and they're both elementary. Okay, so once you get to the west side of 35, in particular across Kegley, that's all a different school district, Belton ISD, even though it is in the city of Temple. But now we're hearing we're not just growing in the western part of the city, which is Belton ISD. We are also growing in the eastern and southern part, and a little bit in the western part that's closer to I-35 by us. And so we did a demographic study. And sure enough, the demographic study showed that we were growing in the northeast by Hector P. Garcia, the northwest by Kennedy Powell, and the south over by Ray Allen. So we bought land. We bought 47.5 acres in 2019. We bought it at a very, very good price, paid cash for it, so the community's still not paying for it. It was paid for back then, right? And we bought the site for an elementary school and middle school right next to each other. Middle school number 4, which has not been built, yet to be named, etc., and Sampson Howard Elementary, which opened last year. And then in 2020, we redid the whole facilities master plan. We had architects work with principals, teachers, so forth. We went into the buildings. You need this replaced. This is outdated. You can add classrooms here instead of building a building. We got all that reported in 2020, and we went out in 2022. And that bond was $164.5 million. Now, let me stop real quick. You don't see it here in 2021, but it is written over here. We did go out for a bond, and it failed by 2 votes. So if you ever are sitting there wondering if your vote matters, I will tell you, in 2021, let that be a reminder that it does. Because that was a $180 million bond we lost by 2 votes. So every single vote matters. So you can shake your head and agree with things. You can be part of the plan. You can do all that. But unless you show up and vote, all that really doesn't amount to action. So 2022, we went out for a bond, and we passed it. And as I said before, it was about $164.5 million. Big projects out of that to get rid of the last 20 portables, right? That was a big piece of that. Another one was the new Facilities and Operations Center that's so desperately needed. And then the Athletic Training Center was another. And then Sampson Howard Elementary, which we just opened last year. adding an elementary school to the school district, which hasn't happened since 1998. 2023, we redid our facilities master plan, demographic study in 24, and here we go, 2025. And the demographic study said 500 plus students in the next 4 years, because we gained about 400 in the last 4 years, right? And then this is also what it said. 35 total subdivisions inside Temple ISD boundaries, not the city of Temple, the big circle, where they could be in a different school district, in our school district. That is the most subdivisions that we have had in Temple ISD in 40 plus years. 40 plus years. So we're growing. We are growing. Some people don't like that, some do, but at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, we're growing. And when we're growing, that means we have families, and that means we have to find places where students can sit down and receive an education. We did a facilities master plan, and in doing that, it tells you where you can add classrooms. We have some campuses that sit on large plots of land where we can just add classrooms to those campuses, and we are so lucky because they happen to be where we're growing. In the Northwest, Kennedy Powell sits on 32 acres of land, and that's where we're growing. In the Northeast, Garcia sits on 34 acres of land. That's where we're growing. Temple High School, we're growing. Dunbar, the pre-K center, Meredith Dunbar, we're growing, and there's a lot of acreage there. So we have the opportunity to add classrooms. And on top of that, the state of Texas, the last 2 legislative sessions, has put out new safety and security requirements. Well, obviously they're new, so we had some deficiencies there, and that came out in the facilities audit. These are the meetings. Back to what I said earlier, we didn't start this, like overnight. This has been part of a long-range process, but working with parents now, that even started all the way back to February 5th. First parent meeting. And we didn't appoint parents. We didn't say only you. It was open to any parent in the school district, every single one of our parent meetings. We have 6,500 parents in our school district that make up our 8,800 students. And that was open to any and all of them. So what happened when you go through this process is I would meet with the parents. We would show them, here are the needs. Here's the demographic report. How do you want us to handle it? How do you want us to handle it? These are your children. It's your money, right? How do you want it? Your schools. How do you want us to handle it? And so they would say, well, do this, and so forth. Then we'd go and meet with business professionals in different groups, spiritual leaders, and so forth, bilingual parents, back and forth. And then you have a slide here, even more. I mean, we're talking all kinds of meetings, right? And what happened at the end of the day is we came to the parents after we gave them all this input and they told us all these different ideas. We said, okay, we've got 3 options based on our conversations. Option 1, we can add portables back. We got rid of them in the last bond, but we can add them back because we're growing. And kids got to go somewhere, right? Some of you may be thinking, oh, that's cheap. Well, maybe, right? Portables aren't free. $150,000 to $200,000, whether it's a 1 classroom portable, 2 with a restroom, whatever it may be. Utilities, very inefficient, insurance, the whole thing, right? So that isn't cheap. But that's option 1. And right away, the parents said, no, we don't even want to decide on that. We said no to that. Community has said no to that. So that's off the table. But you have to present every option to them. Second option is, we already have the land for an elementary and a middle school, so we can just go build those. And they're going to be expensive because building new buildings, they are expensive to do. A middle school costs you about $100 million right now. Elementary school, 43 to 48 million, depending on how many kids, right? That's what you're talking. So that right there is over 160 million. And that doesn't include adding classrooms to the high school or to Dunbar, right? So the second option is, instead of building new schools, why don't we add classrooms? We don't need to build these big, new, expensive buildings right now. And guess what? The parents voted, and 88% of them said, we're going to do that. 1, they're taxpayers. It's a lot cheaper. And you'll see that toward the end of this presentation. It's efficient. It makes sense. And it's also cheaper in a way that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people just think it's about buildings, one big building versus a classroom. Let's think about what's in the building. If we build a brand new middle school that's supposed to hold 900 kids, and it'll take 3 years to hold 900 kids, if you open up that building and it has 200 the first year, guess what you still have to have? Cafeteria staff, a principal, assistant principal, a nurse, a librarian, a diagnostician. I can go on forever. And that's every year cost, by the way. If you're just adding classrooms to an existing building, then guess what? You just add teachers. You just add teachers when you get the kids. You add teachers or maybe an aide, depending if it's a special program. Okay? That made a ton of sense to families. So, all of this, safety, security, and seats, right? Safety and seats is what we're calling it. Very basic. There's no fluff in this whatsoever. We're talking seats for kids to sit in. We're talking safety and the safety requirements from the state. Prop A. When you go to a ballot, you're going to see two props. You're going to see a Prop A. You're going to see a Prop B. Prop A is safety, and I'm going to go through that. Prop B is seats. I'm going to go through that, and then afterwards, I'm going to go through the total financial impact for you. So let's talk about Prop A. Prop A. Once again, everything up here is a requirement of the Texas Education Agency. Legislative requirements pass through TEA. It's not Temple ISD's requirements. It's theirs. And let me just say this. I agree with them. I agree with them. Do I agree that they're underfunded or not funded? No. But I agree with the requirements. So, one of them is that you have to have a peace officer certified armed person on every campus. We have a police officer at our middle schools, each one of them, and our high school, and Wheatley. But we do not have, because they're more expensive than a security officer, we do not have police officers at our elementary schools. We have commissioned security officers, meaning they carry, but they're not police officers. And we'll get into the differences in a second. Impact-resistant film. That was a requirement of the Texas Education Agency. Some people refer to it as bulletproof film. It's not bulletproof, but it's certainly hard to penetrate. When we adopted a deficit budget, like about 85% of the districts did in Texas, because we didn't have money or get money from the legislative session 2 years ago, what we did as part of the deficit budget is we thought this was so important we adopted it. Every building that has a child in it, all of our schools, have impact-resistant film wrapped on every first floor window. That's done. But guess what? Not every building has kids in it. Some have all adults, like the bus barn, like the warehouse facility, like the administration building. Everybody deserves to feel safe, whether you're staff or student. So that part is here. Okay? That is also in this ASCII. Perimeter fencing, as I mentioned before, this is a requirement. I think about two campuses come to my mind right away, Scott Elementary and Western Hills. If you walk out the back of Scott or Western Hills, there's a playground, and right behind it, you see fencing, but it's not school fencing. It's the backyard residential fencing of a bunch of homes. You can open the gate and walk right on out. Your dogs can run out on the playground, whatever, right? We have courtyards in the district that are not fenced. We have schools that don't, even the high school doesn't have exterior fencing all the way around it. It has it in different parts, but not all the way around it. It's a requirement. So this would be part of Prop A. Replacing security cameras, let me just tell you that students can find blind spots very quick. So we have more security cameras we need to add. Plus, we're growing, so we need to add some as well, right? When you're getting rid of portables and you're adding classrooms to buildings, you have to add cameras too. We have some cameras that are analog and not digital. We got to upgrade those. That's the same issue with the fire alarms here, and then cybersecurity. So this is everything in Prop A. Let's talk about money. There's a lot of talk out there that, public education got a lot of money through House Bill 2. And let me just say this here and now, and Representative Buckley would say it as well. I helped write that bill. He's the author. So I know what's in it. And it was probably one of the best finance bills ever until it got to the Senate. And it completely changed. It's very restrictive. Very restrictive. Over 80-something% of that goes to teachers, and not all teachers, teachers that are year 3 and above, and special education. And rightfully so, right? But it left very little money for safety. $20 a student. All of this comes to $312 a student. So Prop A is simple math. $312 per student. We have 8,800, gives you $2.75 million. And that is what the asking is. Now, this next slide is going to be a video of our police chief, Chief Reynolds. And what he's going to do is he's going to kind of explain some of the differences between a security officer and a police officer. And then I'll highlight some of those at the end, and then I'll get into the cost of Prop A.
I think of community-oriented policing is really foundational around those relationships, trust, and communication. And what I mean by that, for patrol officer, it means you got to get out of your car. You want to talk to people, right? And in the school setting, we're always out of our car. And we're interacting with parents. We're interacting with students. We're interacting with staff, cafeteria staff, janitorial staff. So there's this real communal experience, in my opinion, to the SROs. I would hope that for most in our population outside of the school setting, they find a bit of security and safety in knowing that their campus has a school resource officer. They're highly trained. They wanted to be there. They can't just, we don't just assign someone. They have to apply. There's a process for it. They have a strong love and support and desire to want to work with the youth in our communities. So that's a huge benefit, both inside and outside. The relationships extend outside to the parents, obviously, as well. And they have a resource that they can contact if they're experiencing something at home that they might need. We want them to reach out to us. It truly is a unique partnership. It's a partnership between the school districts, the law enforcement, and the community. And again, those things that I've mentioned, interoperability, the radio system is connected with every officer that exists. So if something did, God forbid, happen at one of our schools, we automatically have a connection point, communications. We're very familiar with the layouts of the schools. We train in the schools. We do yearly tabletops with the school district on everything from active assailant to severe weather events, lockdowns, and the reunification process. So the partnership, the community, it all comes together. And I think the SRO program is a great example of community policing, because there's nothing more communal than being in a facility, not in a patrol car, where you're literally walking around and talking to people for your entire shift. That is community policing.
Chief Reynolds mentioned two things, and the two things that he mentioned tested very, very high with a community survey that we did on why we should have police officers on every campus, not just our middle schools and high schools, but our elementaries. Number one, he talked about interoperability and communication. Security officers do not have the ability to mobilize first responders. God forbid, if something happened at a campus, they cannot get on a radio and call other patrol cars, an ambulance, fire, whatever it may be. They do not have that type of communication ability. The second thing is the training they have. The training to be a security officer is far different than being an academy-trained police officer. Those two things in and of itself help with campus safety. And I'm going to add another thing that's not even on here. Folks that are police officers in a community, they typically live in the community. Many of them have kids that go to our schools. It's different than contracting with a company out of Waco, where they're turning over security officers all the time because they can't keep them. There's a different level of investment. There's a different level of personal care and attention. And I can see that difference even. So I want you to know that the things that Chief Reynolds is saying, that's absolutely the truth. And those things are very, very accurate when you're out on campuses. So all the things I've talked about together, $2.75 million. Our current, and remember I said there's two sides of the tax rate. So we're talking about one side right here. Our current maintenance and operations rate is 79 cents. See here, it says 79.39. Well, it should say 0.39, but because you're supposed to, when you do $100 valuation on a home, you move it twice. So it's 79.39 cents. To get all this safety-wise, which is a super low asking, $2.75 million, it's less than a penny, 80.22. That is 4/5 of a penny. It's less than a penny. Less than a penny for all of that. And that is the breakdown of everything. Your police officers, your fencing, your impact-resistant windows, cybersecurity, current SROs, security camera, and fire alarms. It's all there. $2.75 million for less than a penny. Prop B, this is seats, right? So one addresses safety, the other addresses growth. There's nothing fancy here. We're not talking big programs. We're not talking huge replacement cycles. People are like, well, shouldn't you handle the maintenance stuff? Yes, we do and have. This is literally chairs so kids can sit in and be educated in classrooms. Temple High School. Temple High School has a capacity in that building of 2,500. We have 2,300. Everybody walks around and says, oh, Temple High School's too big. Why don't you have 2 high schools? Da, 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 da. Well, let me explain. We don't have 2 high schools because we don't need 2 high schools. Because a good portion of the city of Temple goes to another school district. So technically, the city of Temple has 2 high schools. One's called Lake Belton. Okay? When Belton, who has 2 high schools, Georgetown, who has 2 high schools, Eastview and Georgetown, College Station, who has 2 high schools, Waco, who has 2 high schools, they all had total student enrollments of 13 or 14,000. How many did I say we had? 8,800. They all had high schools that were over 3,000. How many do we have? 2,300. We're nowhere close. We barely made 6A last UIL realignment. So the idea that we should have 2 high schools, that is an idea that carries no weight. Because we would have one high school for about 250 kids and we would undersubscribe the other. And you name one school district in the state of Texas that goes to their community and asks for a $200 million high school for 300 kids to have comparable programs. That's the most inefficient thing I've ever heard. So, 2,500. We have 23 something. 2,500, that's if every classroom had 25 kids in it. Well, that doesn't happen. You don't have 25 kids in Central Texas that want to take AP Calculus, much less in Temple. So you're not going to have that. You're not going to have 25 kids in French 4 or in Welding 2. You're not going to have those things. So our high school is getting close to full, even though we're at 2,300 and we have capacity of 2,500. Today, we have 8 teachers that don't have their own classroom. Core teachers. Core meaning they teach English, math, history, science. They don't have their own classroom. So what that means is I go to your class because you have a conference period and I teach my history class out of there. And then I go to that person's classroom because they have a conference period, second period, and I teach, and I'm on a cart all day. Now, I'm not naive to the idea that high schools don't have floaters or traveling teachers, but that is not a permanent solution for core teachers. It just isn't. So this would help it. We would add 16 classrooms to Temple High School. And for those of you who are saying, oh my goodness, where? I'll show you where in a couple slides. 16 classrooms still doesn't even put you at 2,900 students. It doesn't even put you there, much less 3,000. So we will not build a second high school in Temple ISD because the demographic study 10 years later even shows we don't have the numbers. But if we ever did, rest assured, we would buy the land and do it like we do everything else. So we would add furniture. That's $1 million. If I asked how many of you graduated Temple High School, you raised your hand, I would tell you some of our students are sitting in the same chairs you are. And that's the truth. Now, not in the newer parts like CTE and fine arts and some of the advanced academics and other, but when you walk in the building, the first the 2 stories right away, there's old furniture in there. We got to get all that replaced, right? 16 classrooms. Of course, we would add student and staff restrooms, would add fencing. We would add a gym as well. We have 2 competition gyms. If you think that Air Force, band, color guard, cheer, girls and boys basketball for freshmen, JV, varsity, volleyball for freshmen, JV, and varsity can all be in 2 gyms, go ask them because they get kicked out all the time. It's just school districts that have 6A high schools, they have 3 gyms that are competition gyms. We have 2. So it wouldn't be a main competition gym. We're asking for a sub-varsity one, so it's a lot cheaper. Edwards Academy. Edwards Academy is basically our accelerated high school, and we would add 2 classrooms there, so that's 50 more students. That would alleviate any growth here, 25 a class. And then every school district is required to have what they call an 18-plus special ed program. This is for students that are ages 18 to about 23, and what we are purposed to do is to teach them independent skills so they can transition into the workforce. This group has been displaced in we've rented a house because they have to have specialized, they have to have a kitchen and things like that. We've rented a house. They've been in a church for a little bit. They're in a portable right now, 2 portables, and we need to get them out of portables. They need to be in permanent space, and so that would be housed at Edwards. And then we would add restrooms because we're adding classrooms. So I have slides that look like this as we go through here, and they're what I call vote yes, vote no. If you voted yes, or actually if you voted no, that means that we would have to put portables down. So that's the slide over here, because we got to put kids somewhere. So if you're talking about 16 classrooms, that would be 8 double portables. And so it's probably hard to see, but there's one there, one there, one there, some around our tennis courts, our softball field, and so forth. So they'd just be spackled all over the campus. A vote yes on Prop B means we don't have portables at the high school. Instead, this parking lot back here, right by Houston Street, that runs along the backside of the high school, the freshman center parking lot would have a 2-story building on it, so everything's still enclosed. It's all on campus. 8 classrooms and restrooms at the bottom, 8 on top. And then you'd take this parking lot and you'd flip it on the backside here, because we own all that, and you'd run it this way, which is east and west. Some people have said, well, why don't you run it this way, north and south? It's pretty easy, because that is a floodplain, and the drainage would cost so much money to do that. We can walk. People can walk. We will build it east-west. It's a lot cheaper. And then you get everything in the rectangle that makes up Temple High School. Edwards Academy, these 2 portables are there today if you go. That holds our special ed 18-plus program. And then, so those would stay, and then we would add one here for the 2 classrooms. This would be a double classroom portable we'd add here for the regular instruction program. Or you could just finish out the horseshoe, right? One roof, line of sight, so forth. You get your special ed program here and your 2 regular classrooms there. No portables. Next, elementary, middle schools. So at Garcia, remember I talked about Garcia and Kennedy Powell sitting, each of them sit on 30-plus acres of land, so we could add classrooms. At Hector P. Garcia, because we are growing in the Northeast, we would add 6 based on the demographic study. That's about 132 kids. And then at Kennedy Powell, that's 44 students. We would add 2 classrooms there. Meredith Dunbar, that would be 6 classroom spaces. And if we needed to rezone the elementary schools, we could. But the main purpose of doing this, besides savings, is we can push that next bond way out. Like, we will not have to go out for a bond for a good while. And a lot of people, they want to know that. Well, when would you ask again? Well, I mean, I'm guessing it'd probably be 4 or 5 years later, much later. And we have some finish out work to do at Lamar, Travis, and Wheatley, but that's very, very small, and I'll go over those here in a second. So Kennedy Powell, pretty easy, right? A vote no, that means we have 2 portables. There they are. Vote yes, we just extend the wing. Garcia, a vote no, gets us 6 single classroom portables right here. A vote no, we just tee it off as permanent classrooms. Much different. Remember, the community was absolutely anti-portables, but we would be adding them all over the district. We would end up adding 34 portables across the school district. So we went from 47 to 0, and then we could go up to 34 with vote no's. Meredith Dunbar, those of you that know Dunbar, it was a high school at one time. Some of you know the history behind it. This little building right over here, it's called the Little Wildcat Enrichment Center today. That was the old CTE building of the high school, way back. We're talking 50-something, 60 years ago. Okay? Now, This building today has 2 classrooms that are regulation size. The other 4 spaces are glorified closets. You cannot provide education there. So this would come down on a vote yes. And then over here, we would just extend that wing and add the 6 classrooms. And you see this gap? Prop A would fund the fencing to cover this courtyard. And we would seal that all off and it'd be safe. This is cost. Basically, the high school with everything I talked about, 16 classrooms, the gym, the storage, the furniture, perimeter fencing, $60 million. Edwards Academy, for the 4 classrooms, 2 of them are the special ed specialized spaces. That'd be $8.7 million. Wheatley, we just need to finish out some of the classrooms there. It's this close. Wheatley is this close to being done. And when I say done, I mean for years. Freeman Heights, we do need to add an alternative power source there, so we're not down to 1 point of failure. Bonham, if you've gone to Bonham Middle School, the back of it is almost brand new. We got the new library, the new kitchen, right? A lot of renovations. The front, if you go up to the front, there's a lot of foundational issues. You'll see the windows are separating. The brick and everything else is, every time I do this presentation, parents are like, yes, I see that, right? That all has to get redone. We've got to take care of that. Lamar Middle School and Travis, that's just a matter of 2 things. At Lamar and Travis, one has upgraded weight room, the other has upgraded locker room. We need to get them all up to equal standard. All of them need to have the upgraded girls and boys locker rooms and weight room. But at Travis, the difference is at Travis, we have a dance program. It's in portable right now. I was just out there last week. It's in a portable, right? We would make that a dance classroom, and it would be added to the building. It'd actually be added where the fine arts piece is. The 6 classrooms at Meredith Dunbar, $10.4 million. Here are your 2 classrooms at Kennedy Powell. I do want to point out Hector P. Garcia's cost, because that's pretty expensive. We're adding 6 classrooms. Let me tell you why. If you add 44 students to Kennedy Powell, you don't have to expand your cafeteria or your library or your gym or your parking lots, or any of the unstructured spaces. But when you get to a certain point and you start adding classrooms to buildings that were built a while back, then you get to a point where you're tipping the core, because those cafeterias weren't built for that many students. They were built for the amount that's on the campus today. That's what would happen at Hector P. Garcia. 22 students times, 6 classrooms? That's 132. And if you're adding 132 kids, we're going to have to expand the cafeteria. We're going to have to expand the library. We're going to have to take care of the parking and so forth. So that makes this amount go up. District-wide infrastructure, that's technology. When you're growing, you got to run wire and pipe and everything else underground, and school buses as well. Future elementary school and future middle school, I want to talk about that. That's not the school. That's the plans. Architecture plans. We already own the land, so why not just pay for the plan? Because this bond amount is going to be so low, then it saves money. The district owns both, so when it's time, you can push the bond out even further because you're shaving that time off, right? And all you got to do is hire a construction firm when that time comes way down the road. So let's pay for the plans now, right? We already have the land. Same thing. Get it now while it's cheaper. Total costs are up here. High school in Edwards, $68.7 million. Wheatley and Meredith Dunbar, $11.8. Middle schools, $14 million. Elementary, $21.8. And then the infrastructure, $3.4. For a total cost of the smallest bond amount since 2011, $119.7 million. What you're going to see about both these props is this. Prop A was $2.75 million. That's the smallest single asking we may have ever had with the community, right? And it was less than a penny. Remember that? This here is a penny. 1 penny. 1 penny for $119.7 million. Both together, a yes and a yes, is less than 2 cents. Because the tax rate now, right now, is 32.5 cents. This would make it 33.5 cents. So now I want to talk about the money. Because you can talk about values with people till they're blue in the face. You can talk about all kinds of stuff, tax rates and all that. But you know what people really want to know? What am I going to pay? My tax bill. That's what they want to know. Before I get into that, quick reminder, and this is important because this is on the ballot. First of all, we know that values are frozen if you're over 65. But let me tell you this. Did you know? Because if you're thinking about, well, should I vote or not? Well, here's a reason for sure. If you're 65 or older or a disabled vet, your current homestead exemption today is $100,000. It doubles. It doubles. Excuse me. It's on the November ballot to go to $200,000. Meaning that $200,000 would not be taxed at all. None of this would apply to it. So if your home's worth less than $200,000 and you're 65 or a vet, then that means nothing. Nothing happens, right? At all. So that's worth voting. But what if you're under 65 and not a vet? Well, then you go from $100,000 homestead exemption to $140,000. Both of those are on the November ballot. Now, I can't tell you how to vote on this, but I can tell you that is worth voting for. And every time, that we've had homestead exemption increases, that's passed by like 98% or more. So we factored all of that passing into these numbers because it will pass. Well, here's the impact. Not the city of Temple, that's the big circle. Temple ISD, the small circle. Because the only people that can vote for this, if you live in the city of Temple and you're not in the school district, you can't vote one way or the other, for or against it. Okay. But if you're in Temple ISD, the average home, according to the appraisal district, is $250,000. So a vote yes for Prop A and Prop B. People asking, what am I going to pay? If your home is $250,000, the average home, you will pay less than $5 a month. That's for all of that on safety, and that's for all of that on seats. That's for about 121, 122 million when you put it all together. Less than $60 a year. So if your home is worth less than that, well, then that's going to be a smaller number. If it's worth more, well, then that's going to be a higher number. But for the average homeowner, it's less than $5 a month, $60 a year. And that's the question people want to know the answer to. This is a summary slide. Basically, just as a reminder, the first bullet here is Prop A. It's safety. Police officers, fencing, window, film, fire alarm, cybersecurity, and cameras. And then these 4 bullets here, that's seats. That's over here. That's 34 classrooms. Hector P. Garcia, Meredith Dunbar, Kennedy Powell, Temple High School, and a few at Travis, renovations at Lamar and Wheatley, and the front facing and bottom. Voting. This is very important, and this is coming. The next couple weeks. So early vote. Well, first of all, the last day to register to vote was October 6th. Early voting is October 20th. Okay, through the 31st. And remember, the administration building, 401 Santa Fe Way, we are a voting site, and we have been, whether we're on the ballot or not, whether it's primaries or general election, we have been. The community really enjoys that as a voting site. We are a voting site. So it's 8 to 5 the first week, October 20th to the 24th. That Saturday, 25th, it's 7 to 7. Sunday, that's October 26th. It's noon to 6. And then Monday, the second week, from the 26th through the 31st, is from 7 to 7. Okay. Election Day, that's November 4th. That's Tuesday. That is from 7 to 7. That is not only at the administration building, but if you want, it's at Meredith Dunbar as well. You can go vote there on Election Day. Okay? If you have any questions, we have all kinds of information online. And I will tell you, this entire presentation is online with me presenting it as a voiceover. So you don't just have to read it and try to figure it out. I'm explaining it. We have that online. If you have any questions, you can email me. You can email election2025@tisd.org. I check that every single day and respond within a day and a half, maybe even sooner. Okay? So we are very responsive. If you have any questions, my job one, is to make sure you're informed. If you have any questions, I'll answer anything. You can call me anytime. I just want you to be informed and understand what you are going up to say yes or no to. Okay? I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.